My husband called me useless at our anniversary, but then the MC announced my net worth. You know that feeling when someone you love breaks your heart with just a few words? Well, that's exactly what happened to me at what was supposed to be the most romantic evening of our marriage. My name is Olva, and this is the story of how my 10th wedding anniversary turned into the most humiliating yet liberating night of my life. Before I continue, have you subscribed yet? Kindly subscribe for more stories and mark the register by commenting which country you're watching from. Today's shout out goes to Rosie. She's watching from Buffalo, New York. Thank you for watching and commenting. Now, let's get right into it. It started like any other Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen making Owen's favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese, toast cut diagonally just how he likes it, and fresh orange juice. After 10 years of marriage, you'd think these little gestures would mean something to him. But as I watched him scroll through his phone while mechanically eating, barely acknowledging my presence, I realized how invisible I'd become in my own home. Don't forget we have the anniversary dinner tonight at the Grand Ballroom, I said, trying to inject some enthusiasm into my voice. 7 o'clock sharp. Owen looked up from his phone for exactly 2 seconds. Right, the thing at the hotel. Are you sure you want to go through with this whole celebration? Seems like a waste of money if you ask me. My heart sank a little, but I forced a smile. It's our 10th anniversary, Owen. I thought it'd be nice to celebrate with our friends and family. He shrugged and went back to his phone. Whatever makes you happy, I guess. Just don't expect me to give some mushy speech or anything. After Owen left for his job at the marketing firm, I spent the entire day preparing for our anniversary celebration. I had booked the Grand Ballroom at the Riverside Hotel, the same place where we had our wedding reception 10 years ago. It wasn't cheap, but I had been saving money from my freelance writing work for months to make this night special. I invited 30 of our closest friends and family members, Owen's parents, his brother, Tristan, my best friend Crystal, and colleagues from both our workplaces. I wanted everyone who mattered to us to be there to celebrate this milestone. The theme was a decade of love. Cheesy, I know, but I'm a romantic at heart. I had ordered a beautiful cake with our wedding photo printed on it, arranged for a professional photographer, and even hired a live band to play our favorite songs. The decorations were elegant, soft lighting, flowers everywhere, and a slight show of our memories playing on a large screen. But the most important part of the evening was something nobody knew about, not even Owen. I had arranged for a special surprise that would change everything. As I got ready that afternoon, I looked at myself in the mirror. At 32, I still felt young, but lately I'd been feeling older, more tired. Marriage to Owen had been challenging. He worked long hours and came home stressed, often taking out his frustrations on me. He never hit me or anything like that, but his words could be just as painful. You don't contribute anything meaningful to this household, he'd say during our arguments. I'm the one with the real job, the real income. What do you do all day? Write little articles that pay peanuts? I'd tried to tell him that my freelance writing was more than just little articles, but he never listened. He saw me as his housewife, his support system, but never as his equal partner. Tonight, I hoped, would be different. The Grand Ballroom looked absolutely stunning. The hotel staff had outdone themselves with the decorations, and as guests began arriving at 7 p.m., I felt a surge of pride. Crystal was the first to arrive, looking gorgeous in a navy blue dress. Olva, this is incredible, she exclaimed, giving me a tight hug. You've really outdone yourself. Thanks, Crystal. I just wanted tonight to be perfect. She looked around the beautifully decorated room. Where's Owen? Shouldn't he be here greeting guests with you? I glanced at my watch. It was already 7:15, and Owen was nowhere to be seen. He's probably just running late from work. You know how he is. But as more guests arrived, Owen's parents, his brother Tristan, our friends from college, neighbors, and colleagues, I started to panic. Where was my husband on our anniversary? Finally, at 7:45, Owen strolled in wearing a wrinkled shirt and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He didn't apologize for being late or acknowledge the effort I had put into planning this evening. He just grabbed a drink from the bar and started talking to his brother Tristan. "Owen," I called out, walking over to him. "Everyone's been waiting for you." He looked annoyed. "Relax, Ova. It's just a dinner. People can wait." Just a dinner. Those words stung more than he realized. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a celebration of our marriage, our love, our 10 years together. But to him, it was just another obligation. The evening progressed, and I tried to maintain my composure despite Owen's obvious disinterest. During dinner, while I made conversation with our guests, he spent most of his time on his phone or talking business with his colleagues. When people asked him about our marriage or shared their own anniversary stories, he gave short, dismissive answers. 10 years, huh?" said Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor. "What's your secret to a happy marriage, Owen?" Owen looked up from his phone with a smirk. "Low expectations, I guess." The room fell silent. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable, and I quickly changed the subject. But Owen wasn't done. As the evening wore on, he seemed to get more and more irritated. Maybe it was the drinks, or maybe it was just his true feelings finally coming to the surface. When the MC, a professional I had hired to make the evening special, announced that it was time for the couple to share some words about their marriage, I felt excited. This was my moment to tell Owen and everyone else how much our marriage meant to me. I stood up first, my hands shaking slightly as I held the microphone. 10 years ago, I married my best friend. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. Owen, you've been my rock, my partner, and my greatest love. Through all the ups and downs, the late nights and early mornings, the dreams we've shared and the challenges we faced, I want you to know that I would choose you again, every single day. The room erupted in applause. I saw Crystal wiping away tears, and even Owen's typically stoic father was smiling. I felt proud of my words, proud of the love I had for my husband, despite everything. Then it was Owen's turn. He stood up slowly, took the microphone, and looked around the room. For a moment, I thought he might surprise me with something heartfelt. Instead, he surprised me with something that would haunt me forever. "Well," he said, his voice slightly slurred from the drinks, "I guess I should say something about my dear wife, Ova." The room went quiet, waiting for his romantic declaration. You know, people always ask me what Ova brings to our marriage, and honestly, I've been trying to figure that out for 10 years now. I mean, I go to work every day, I pay the bills, I handle the real responsibilities, and Ova, well, Ova stays home and writes her little blog post and pretends she's contributing something meaningful to our household. The word useless hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My own husband had just called me useless in front of 30 people who mattered to us on our anniversary at the celebration I had planned and paid for. I stood there frozen as tears welled up in my eyes. I wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from this nightmare, but I couldn't move. Owen handed the microphone back to the MC and sat down, apparently satisfied with his speech. The room remained silent for what felt like an eternity. The MC, a professional named Marcus, who had probably seen his share of awkward moments, cleared his throat and tried to salvage the situation. "Well, that was honest," he said diplomatically. "Now, before we move on to the cake cutting, I have a special announcement that was requested by the anniversary couple." I looked confused. I didn't request any special announcement. What was he talking about? My heart stopped. Oh, no. Oh, no. I had completely forgotten about this. Months ago, when I was feeling particularly unappreciated by Owen, I had asked Marcus to include a special segment about my career accomplishments. It was supposed to be a fun surprise, a way to show Owen that I was more than just a housewife. But after Owen's humiliating speech, this was about to become something entirely different. "I'm sorry, I don't think," I started to say, but Marcus had already begun. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share some information about Mrs. Over Richardson's professional achievements that some of you may not be aware of." The room turned to look at me. I could see Owen's confused expression, and honestly, I was just as confused. What exactly had I asked Marcus to announce? Mrs. Richardson is not just a freelance writer, as some of you may think. She is actually the anonymous author behind the incredibly successful blog, Modern Woman's Guide to Everything. I saw Crystal's eyes widen. She knew about my blog, but she was one of the few people who did. This blog, which Mrs. Richardson has been running for the past 5 years, has over 2 million monthly subscribers and generates significant advertising revenue. The room was paying attention now. Owen looked skeptical, like this was all some elaborate joke. "But that's not all," Marcus continued. "Mrs. Richardson is also the author of 3 best-selling ebooks in the lifestyle and self-help categories. Her books have sold over 500,000 copies combined." I could hear whispers around the room. People were starting to look impressed, while Owen looked increasingly uncomfortable. "But that's not all," Marcus continued. "Mrs. Richardson is also the author of 3 best-selling ebooks in the lifestyle and self-help categories. Her books have sold over 500,000 copies combined. Additionally, Mrs. Richardson has been quietly building a portfolio of online courses and digital products that have generated substantial income over the past several years." This was getting more detailed than I remember asking for. Had I really given Marcus all this information? "But here's the most interesting part," Marcus said, his voice building with excitement. "Mrs. Richardson has been so successful with her online business ventures that she has been able to make some significant investments." My palms were sweating. I was starting to remember more of what I told Marcus months ago during our planning session. I had been so frustrated with Owen's dismissive attitude about my work that I had maybe shared more information than I should have. "Including," Marcus continued, "purchasing this very hotel where we're celebrating tonight." The room erupted. People started talking all at once. Owen's jaw literally dropped. His brother Tristan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Crystal was grinning from ear to ear. "That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Over Richardson is the new owner of the Riverside Hotel, having purchased it just 6 months ago through her business entity, Richardson Holdings LLC. I felt dizzy. Yes, I had bought the hotel. It was an investment opportunity that came up through my business connections, and I had the cash flow to make it happen. But I hadn't told anyone, not even Owen. I had been planning to tell him tonight after the anniversary celebration when we were alone. Mrs. Richardson's total net worth, including her business assets, real estate investments, and liquid assets, is approximately $2.3 million. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was staring at me, some with admiration, some with shock, and Owen with complete disbelief. So, when Mr. Richardson referred to his wife as useless earlier this evening, he was talking about a woman who has built a multi-million-dollar business empire while managing their household and supporting his career. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around the room at the faces of our friends and family. Owen's parents looked shocked and embarrassed by their son's behavior. Tristan was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Crystal was grinning from ear to ear. But it was Owen's face that I'll never forget. He looked pale, confused, and for the first time in years, actually speechless. Ova, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Is this true? I took a deep breath. There was no going back now. Yes, Owen, it's true. But how? When? I never told you about any of this. I looked at him, this man I had loved for 10 years, who had just called me useless in front of everyone we cared about. I tried to tell you, Owen, so many times, but you never listened. You were always too busy dismissing my work as little articles and playing around on the computer. The room was still silent. Everyone watching this very private conversation happen in public. You have $2.3 million, Owen? Asked, still trying to process this information. I corrected him. We have $2.3 million, Owen. We're married, Owen. Everything I built while I was married to you. Legally, it's ours. But even as I said it, I realized something had fundamentally changed. The way Owen was looking at me now, with dollar signs in his eyes instead of love, told me everything I needed to know about our marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus said, trying to bring some normalcy back to the evening, let's move on to the cake cutting ceremony. But I wasn't ready for cake. I wasn't ready for any of this. Actually, I said, taking the microphone back from Marcus, I think I have something else to say. The room turned to me again. I could see Owen's panic, probably thinking I was going to embarrass him further. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Your presence means the world to me. I also want to apologize for the uncomfortable moment earlier. That wasn't how I wanted this evening to go. I looked directly at Owen. You know, Owen, you were right about one thing. I have been pretending. I've been pretending for 10 years that I was happy being dismissed, being undervalued, being treated like my contributions to our marriage and our household didn't matter. Owen's face went from pale to red. Ova, maybe we should talk about this privately. No, I interrupted. You chose to humiliate me publicly, so I think it's only fair that I respond publicly. I turned to address the room. I want everyone here to know that I love my husband. I have loved him for 10 years. I have supported his career, managed our home, and built my own business, all while trying to be the perfect wife. But I've realized something tonight. A marriage is supposed to be a partnership. It's supposed to be about mutual respect, support, and love. When one partner consistently dismisses and devalues the other, it's not a partnership anymore. It's something else entirely. Crystal was nodding vigorously. Even Owen's mother was looking at me with what appeared to be approval. So, Owen, I want you to think very carefully about what you want from our marriage, because I'm done pretending to be less than I am to make you feel better about yourself. After my speech, the party essentially ended. Guests began making their excuses and leaving, offering me awkward congratulations and supportive hugs. Crystal stayed to help me clean up, and Owen's family left without saying much to either of us. Finally, it was just Owen and me in the beautiful ballroom that I had spent months planning and that I apparently now owned. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We need to talk," Owen said once we were alone. "Yes, we do." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was stressed. "Ova, I don't understand any of this. How did you make that much money? How did you buy a hotel? How did I not know about any of this?" I sat down at one of the tables, suddenly exhausted. "I tried to tell you, Owen, so many times, but every time I brought up my work, you dismissed it. You made jokes about my little hobby and my play money. But $2.3 million isn't play money, Ova. That's real money. That's life-changing money. It is real money, and I earned it. While you were at work, I was working too. While you were dismissing my career, I was building an empire. While you were treating me like a housewife whose only job was to make your life easier, I was creating something significant." Owen was quiet for a long moment. I remember some of those conversations differently. "I'm sure you do. So what happens now?" he asked. "What do you want from me?" I looked at this man I had loved for so long, who had just publicly humiliated me, who was now looking at me with a mixture of confusion and what I suspect was greed. "I want you to apologize, not just to me, but to everyone who was here tonight. I want you to acknowledge that you were wrong about me, about my work, about my contributions to our marriage." "Okay," he said quickly. "I can do that. I'm sorry, Ova, I really am. I was drinking, and I was stressed about work, and I said things I didn't mean." "But you did mean them, Owen. That's the problem. You meant every word. You really do think I'm useless. You really do think my work doesn't matter. You really do think you're the only one contributing to our marriage." "No, that's not true." "It is true. And the fact that you're only apologizing now, after you found out about the money, proves it." Owen was quiet again. Finally, he said, "So what do you want to do? Do you want a divorce?" The question hung in the air between us. Did I want a divorce? 6 hours ago, I would have said no. I would have said I wanted to work on our marriage, to find a way back to the love we used to have. But now? "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need time to think. I need space to figure out what I want." "Where will you go?" I almost smiled. "Owen, I own a hotel. I think I can find a place to stay." Owen also sent flowers, expensive flowers, and jewelry, and a card that said, "I'm sorry for not appreciating the successful woman I married." Not, "I'm sorry for calling you useless," not, "I'm sorry for humiliating you," but "I'm sorry for not appreciating the successful woman I married." Even his apology was about the money. On the 7th day, I made my decision. I asked Owen to meet me at the hotel restaurant. It was neutral territory, and I wanted to have this conversation in a public place where we would both have to remain civil. He arrived looking hopeful, probably thinking I was ready to come home and share my fortune with him. He was wearing a new suit, expensive, probably purchased with the expectation that we would soon be living a much more luxurious lifestyle. "Ova," he said, sitting down across from me, "I've missed you. The house feels empty without you." "I've missed you too, Owen. I've missed the man I married. I've missed feeling like we were partners." "We are partners," he said quickly. "I know I haven't always shown it, but we are." I looked at him carefully. "Owen, do you love me?" "Of course I love you. You're my wife." "Do you love me, or do you love what I can give you?" He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Would you still love me if I lost all my money tomorrow? If my business failed and I was back to making a few $100s a month from freelance writing? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Owen, that's not a fair question. You're successful now. You've built something amazing. Why would you want to go backward? I'm not talking about going backward, Owen. I'm talking about unconditional love. I'm talking about loving someone for who they are, not what they have. I do love you for who you are. No, you don't. You love me for who I am now that you know I'm wealthy. You didn't love me last week when you thought I was just a housewife with a hobby. Owen was quiet for a long moment. So what are you saying? I'm saying that I want a divorce. The words came out more easily than I expected. I had thought they would be harder to say, but they felt right. But Ova, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can start fresh. Owen, you called me useless in front of 30 people on our anniversary at a party I planned and paid for. You humiliated me in the worst possible way, and your only regret is that you didn't know I was rich when you did it. That's not true. It is true. And I deserve better than that. I deserve a partner who values me for who I am, not what I have. I deserve someone who supports my dreams instead of dismissing them. I deserve someone who sees me as an equal, not as a burden or a trophy. Owen looked defeated. What about the money? What about the business? What about everything we've built together? We'll figure out the legal stuff with lawyers. But Owen, I need you to understand something. I built this business. I earned this money. I made these investments. You were busy dismissing my work while I was creating something significant. But we're married. It's community property. Yes, we are married. And yes, you're probably entitled to some of it. But I'm not going to let you use me or my success to fund a lifestyle you haven't earned. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Owen got half of what I had earned during our marriage, which was still a substantial amount. Enough for him to pay off his debts and start over. He tried to fight for more, claiming he had supported my career by providing stability while I worked from home, but his lawyer advised him to take the settlement. I kept the hotel and most of my business assets. I also kept my self-respect. Crystal helped me redecorate the penthouse suite, and I've been living there ever since. It's amazing how peaceful life can be when you're not constantly having your worth questioned. My business has continued to grow. Without the stress of trying to manage a marriage to someone who didn't value me, I've been able to focus on expansion. I've hired a small team, launched 2 new online courses, and I'm working on my first print book. Owen remarried 18 months after our divorce. His new wife is a kindergarten teacher who thinks he's wonderful. I genuinely hope they're happy together. I hope he learns something from our marriage about how to treat a partner with respect. As for me, I'm still single, but I'm not lonely. I have my work, my friends, my hotel, and most importantly, I have my self-respect back. I've learned that it's better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel small. And that's the icing on the cake for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to read feedbacks from you in the comment section. Bye!